Other.
All right, couple of more text line. Oh, we got Brian? We got Armstrong? Okay, here we go. We'll get to that later. And Ron, by the way, a Sooner living in Omaha. That's where I was born. Just joined us, 918 text. We're now joined by the voice of TCU, Brian Estridge. We saw Brian at Big 12 Media Days, covers the Frogs, all in with the Frogs, and joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Brian, we know Baylor and TCU don't like each other. They're very similar, and again, they're not. Can they become friends here until they can get all the money and then look up after the rubble and figure out there's a way better than what they have right now?
No, I think they're holding hands right now, David. I think they have to. They have to until you're right, until they get the money, until you cash in on the prenup, as a buddy of mine told me. You got to get that prenup money first. And once you get that, then I think it's going to be every man for themselves. But right now, there's no question these guys have to stay together. I think all 8 of these teams have to stay together. That worries me because, you know, the first time one of them gets a nice look from a cute girl, they're going to go jumping. And that's what scares me. You know, if the Big Ten calls Kansas, how quickly do they react? You got to slow play this thing, though, David. You got to make sure you get the cash out of Texas and Oklahoma that these other schools deserve.
Brian, where would you rank the panic level in Fort Worth, given that, look, TCU has only been a Power 5 school by the grace of the Big 12, almost breaking up before. So it's got to be kind of nerve-wracking for them, doesn't it?
Well, you know, I guess, but I think you also find, Paul, that TCU's been here, done that. This is not a program that's afraid of turmoil or change. And change is a much more positive word to use, isn't it? I think what TCU has learned over the last 30 years is they can control what they can control. And that is you build facilities, you grow your fan base, you win games, you hire good coaches, you pay adequately. I think what you have to do is you have to take away excuses from these conferences not to add you. And I think that's what TCU has tried to do. They can bring a media market, obviously, as a big selling point for them. They've tried to expand their national presence. They've done the in thing with uniforms and with branding and things of that nature. So I think at this point you can control what you can control, and then you hope that folks look favorably on what you've established.
Brian, as Smokey mentioned, you were there at Big 12 Media Days. It just seemed like a fine time. There was no drama. Everybody was just cordial. And then, obviously, the bomb explodes a few days later. What were your initial thoughts when you first heard those Texas OU reports?
Yeah, we went to dinner the night of the Big 12 Media Days, and I sat beside Craig Way. I wouldn't do that today, knowing what I know. I mean, come on. But when I first heard it, I don't know that I was surprised. I mean, Chris Del Conte was here at TCU. I know what his personal, I shouldn't say that. I think I know what his personal aspirations are. I think, and I'm using that word, aspirations. I think I kind of know where, just by watching him over the years, what he's thinking. And so that doesn't surprise me that he was able to orchestrate this. What does surprise me a little bit, and did surprise me, was that Oklahoma and Joe had gone along with it without, I felt like this was done in the middle of the night on a Friday night, in a back room, some smoky room, and it got done. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, are you serious? Because to me, there's a greater story here. Not only does it affect these college football and basketball teams and student athletes and universities, but the economic impact. I saw a study today that we're talking a $500 million impact in Lubbock, Waco, and Fort Worth alone. That's not talking about what's going to happen in Ames, Iowa, or happen in Stillwater, Oklahoma, or happen in Manhattan, Kansas. But in those 3 Texas cities, you're talking about a $500 million impact. And for Chris Del Conte or whoever to say, you know what, I don't care about the impact that it's going to have on lives and jobs and the economics of these terrific cities, and just do it, without any conversation with anyone. To me, that's what really was disheartening.
Yeah, and especially since he was at TCU. Yeah, I know that when you leave and he's in a bigger ocean, whatever. But, yeah, and I know Ray Perryman, it was about 10 years ago when he threw out a story about how it impacted the economics of Texas with A&M and the SEC. It didn't go over very well. This one was more about 3 specific cities that you're talking about, not about Texas's economy crumbling. But yes, in Waco, Lubbock, and Fort Worth, among the TCU fan base, it will have an impact, no doubt.
I mean, you're talking jobs, you're talking hotels, you're talking rental cars, you're talking flights, you're talking restaurants, and we know how restaurants have struggled during the pandemic. I mean, think about that. Just think about what now all of a sudden you're going to lay this on top of them. I'm like, come on, man, and it's not as if we're keeping the money in the state. Yeah, you got Texas A&M in the state, or you got one school, but think about that's like when teams play 1AA teams from out of state. That try and hey, I'm saying this right now. TCU's playing Duquesne this year. If you're going to play an FCS team, play a team from in-state, man. Keep the money in state. It's vital for our economy, and I think that's just short-sighted, that portion of it, as far as the impact it's going to have economically.
Brian, going back to the deal that they made, like you said, in a back room on a Friday night, together, I think, and I mentioned this on the air the other day, this had to be like a SEAL team surgical strike. This wasn't something that you had to get a lot of people involved in. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if less than 10 total people knew about this. Because if you had more than that, how could you? Yeah.
I think you're talking 4 people.
Yeah.
When at least initially, this was a 4-man conversation, and I think from what I'm hearing, one of the 4 came to it kicking and screaming, that really didn't want to be involved in that conversation, but had to being a good foot soldier. I just think that this is a case where a handful of guys, and people say, well, the governor had to know, or there had to be conversations about this. And the people that I talked to in the Texas legislature, they don't say that. They were as blindsided as anyone. There's a great Baylor supporter, Kelly Hancock, who's in the Senate. And I think Kelly was as blindsided as anyone.
Brian, I was thinking about this. There's been the talk, because everybody's just speculating now about like West Virginia to the ACC or whatever. But correct me if I'm wrong, the Big 12, based on the grant of rights, can go down to at least 4 teams. So going back to Baylor and TCU sticking together, I don't know what K-State's options are. I don't know what maybe, Tech's options are. But can you imagine 4 teams at least sticking this out because they don't have other options, and the amount of buyout money they would collect, not just from Texas and Oklahoma, but the other schools? But the thing about that is, I don't even know, Brian, if these other schools can afford to pay that buyout money. That seems to be kind of a Texas and Oklahoma only type of price tag.
Yeah, and I think you're right on that. And I think that protects the Big 12 a bit. The best case scenario, Craig, is there's some sort of merger, I think, between the Big 12 and the Pac-12, and you're able to kind of come together and retain your Power 5 status, obviously, maybe even improve it. And you go from there. To me, that's the best case scenario. And I know you guys have talked through. I've been watching and looking at the comments on your YouTube channel, and man, you guys are getting all kinds of traffic. And I know you guys have been over all the different scenarios. But I still think you have to slow play it, because I want that money.
Right.
If I'm TCU, I want Texas's dollar all the way down to the last penny, and I want Oklahoma's dollar all the way down to the last penny. It may not hurt them, but it'll make me feel better. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We've discussed this, and Craig brought this up, and we brought it up again this morning. Really, the remaining 8 teams, no matter how big, bad, and bully Texas and Oklahoma are, and what the print they have, and who their tradition or what their tradition is, they have the leverage.
Yep.
If Brian, a conference that has never been together can stay together now that maybe one of the 2 people that have kind of always tried to pick it apart can stay together. And I sure hope they do. Why not? Sit back and go, you're going to pay us? You want to leave? Go ahead. We're going to make you uncomfortable. I've even heard, I don't know if TCU brought this up, is that even some of the bylaws suggest, because of what Texas and Oklahoma have suggested, that they can lose their voting rights and even be censored or fined just because of what they've done.
That wouldn't surprise me. I've heard that conversation as well. But, hey, and here's the other thing. Do you take their money and try to figure out a way to make them stay the whole time?
Yeah.
Make them stay, and you carry on your business, and you sit them at the kids' table during the meetings, and all the decisions get made without them being a part of it. To me, that would be the ultimate. Why not? It was their move. They don't get to dictate what the circumstances of the move are. You do.
Yeah, Brian, that's a great point. Just sit there. I would love to be a fly on the wall in those meetings with Texas having no say.
So wait a minute. How many conferences now has Gary Patterson not won the title, but has been successful. The
Okay.
Big 12, obviously.
Yeah, I got to go back. I have to start from the beginning. So originally it was the 16-team WAC. The 16-team WAC split up with 8 teams going to the Mountain West. TCU stayed in the 8-team WAC. So that's 2. From the 8-team WAC, TCU left and went to Conference USA. From Conference USA, TCU left and went to the Mountain West. From the Mountain West, TCU left and went for a cup of coffee to the Big East. My dad is the only guy in America who still has a TCU Big East T-shirt. He's probably cutting the grass in it right now. And then you got to move to the Big 12. So 6 leagues.
Wow.
6 leagues since Gary Patterson's been here.
Well, no wonder TCU fans are like, well, been through this before. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
From the 9-7-2, laugh my blank off. You ain't making them stay. No. You're not making them stay, but if they want to go, you got to make them pay.
Exactly.
If they want to stay,
It's
then
about the
pay,
dollar.
right? That should be a bumper sticker.
Hey, Brian, one of the things we got from somebody was that this could cost Greg Abbott the governorship, which I find extremely weird considering that we didn't have electricity earlier this year, and that's our priority. But could this really hurt him in his reelection bid?
Oh, I don't know. People have short memories, and are they going to be able to pin this? We don't know what his role in this was. Was he in the know? Was he not in the know? Are people going to be upset that he didn't try to stop it? I don't know that the governor can stop it. I don't. In the big picture, I don't think this affects the governor's race. I'm with you. I think 2 other issues are bigger issues for Greg Abbott: electricity and masks. And shutdowns, and So I think there's a lot more that he's got to deal with than this. But I mean, are there going to be some ramifications because of what happened? Yeah, there are. And I think we're going to see him on Saturdays in the fall in the Big 12. I'm anxious to see that. Texas comes to TCU. Frogs got to play at Oklahoma. I'm anxious to see how the emotion of those games plays out. I mean, I think we're in for. I just think we're in for a hell of a year.
And TCU and Baylor are holding hands.
Yes.
Oh my God.
And singing "Kumbaya."
Yeah, Kumbaya. And then, okay, let's get the money. The hell with you after that. Yeah.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Brian, thank you, buddy. Love it. Appreciate it. Great to see you in Arlington. We'll hope to see you down the road very soon. Thank you.
All right, fellas. Great job.
Brian Estridge, voice of TCU in every way. And coming up.